The sound of music and laughter carried across the lake long before I realized it was coming from my own land. At first, I thought it was another family grilling by the water, but when I crested the hill, my stomach dropped. My private meadow, the one my grandfather left me, the one I kept wild as a sanctuary for deer and eagles, was crawling with people. Dozens of cars lined the edge of the trees, tents flapped in the breeze, and tables groaned under trays of catered food. Children ran through the tall grass I had sworn to protect, stomping the wildflowers flat, while speakers blasted music so loud it shook the cabin windows. And at the center of it all, standing like a general surveying conquered land, was Karen. She was massive, red-faced, her floral blouse straining as she barked orders into a walkie-talkie. In one hand she clutched a clipboard, in the other a plastic wine glass sloshing with red liquid. She spotted me instantly, her lips curling into that smug grin I had come to loathe. "Oh, look who decided to join us," she sneered, raising her glass like a toast. "Your land is finally being put to good use. You should be thanking us. The HOA needed a venue for our summer gala, and your meadow was the obvious choice. It's practically community property anyway." My chest burned. "Community property?" I shouted over the music. "This is my land. I told you all before, you have no right to step foot here. You didn't ask, you didn't pay, and you sure as hell didn't get my permission." Karen waved a hand, dismissive, her fat rings glinting in the light. "Don't be dramatic. You weren't using it. We spruced it up, brought people together. Isn't that what matters? Besides, the HOA board voted, and that's final." The arrogance in her voice was a knife to the gut. She truly believed her little suburban fiefdom could override deeds, wills, and law. Neighbors glanced nervously between us, some ashamed, others complicit, none brave enough to speak. I clenched my fists, rage boiling, but I forced myself to stay calm. I pulled out my phone, raised it high, and began recording. "Karen, you're trespassing. Everyone here is trespassing. You're destroying protected land. And tomorrow, this goes straight to the courthouse." Her smug grin faltered. For the first time, I saw a flicker of doubt. She slammed her wine down on the table. "You wouldn't dare." I dared. The next morning, I walked into the county courthouse with video evidence, photographs, and a binder of documents proving my family's ownership of the land since the 1940s. The judge didn't even hesitate. By afternoon, an injunction was issued. The HOA and its board were banned from holding events or entering my property under penalty of law. When I returned home, neighbors cheered quietly from their porches. They had lived under Karen's reign of fear too long to clap loudly, but their nods told me they were proud someone had stood up. I thought it was over. I thought Karen had finally been put in her place. I was wrong. 3 nights later, I woke to the crack of glass. My headlights, parked by the barn, were smashed. A spray-painted message bled across the cabin wall. "Community first or else." My stomach turned cold. It wasn't just trespassing anymore. It was retaliation. The next day, I caught them. Karen and 2 of her loyal board members sneaking along the tree line, dumping garbage bags into the meadow, muttering about making him pay. When I confronted them, Karen's face was twisted with hatred. "You think one court order changes anything? You embarrassed me. You humiliated the board. We'll take this whole place from you if we have to." But fate had a sense of timing. As her words echoed across the field, a truck pulled up behind us. Sheriff Daniels, a lifelong friend of my father, stepping out with his badge glinting in the sun. He had seen the whole thing. He didn't ask questions. He cuffed her right there, her round face purple with rage, her voice screeching, "You can't arrest me. I am the HOA." The neighbors who had gathered gasped, then clapped, then cheered. The fear cracked like ice under spring sun. And as Karen was hauled off, spitting threats, I realized the fight wasn't just about land. It was about truth, dignity, and a community finally free of her chains. The day Karen was arrested at the edge of my meadow felt like the lifting of a storm. For years, she had strutted across this neighborhood like a tyrant in a crown no one had given her, demanding fees, handing out threats, and pretending her HOA bylaws were stronger than deeds and county records. Now, with her wrists bound in steel and her shrieks echoing through the pines, the neighbors finally saw the truth. She wasn't invincible. She wasn't untouchable. She was a bully who had gone too far. But her arrest was just the start. The county prosecutor took one look at the mountain of evidence: videos of the trespass, photos of the garbage dumping, and testimony from frightened families who admitted she had extorted them for years, and decided to bring the full weight of the law against her. The charges stacked high: trespassing, vandalism, harassment, and conspiracy to commit fraud. The trial that followed was unlike anything our small town had ever seen. By dawn on the first day, the courthouse steps were crowded with reporters and neighbors. Families clutched folders of documents, ready to testify about fines they had paid for imaginary violations. Parents held photos of children's birthday parties that Karen had shut down for noise complaints. One man even brought the receipt for the special contribution she demanded to upgrade the playground. Money that, as we later learned, went directly into her personal bank account. Karen arrived in the back of a sheriff's cruiser, still puffed up like a queen stripped of her throne. Even in her prison jumpsuit, she tried to hold her head high, glaring at everyone as if we were beneath her. Her lawyer spoke of misunderstandings, of a woman who cared too much about her community. But no lawyer on earth could twist what the jury was about to see. The prosecution presented my video first. Karen standing in my meadow, clipboard in hand, glass of wine raised like a toast, declaring my land community property. The jury leaned forward, some with narrowed eyes, as her words echoed in the silent room. Then they showed the footage of her spray-painted threats, of garbage dumped across the field, of her sneering at me with, "We'll take this whole place from you." Each clip was a nail hammered into the coffin of her defense. But the twist that sealed her fate came from her own allies. Board member after board member turned on her, finally free of her shadow. Mrs. Ellison, once trembling at every HOA meeting, testified that Karen had forced her to sign blank checks for community projects that never existed. Mr. Lewis, a retired teacher, admitted Karen threatened to fine him into foreclosure if he didn't back her schemes. Their voices shook, but their relief was palpable, like prisoners breathing fresh air after years in a cage. The courtroom buzzed with disbelief as the prosecutor unveiled bank records. Tens of thousands of dollars, siphoned from fees and donations, had gone into Karen's personal spa treatments, vacations, and luxury shopping trips. She had built her life of comfort on the backs of terrified neighbors. Karen finally snapped when she took the stand. Her voice cracked into shrill hysteria as she screamed at the jury. "I was the only one keeping this place together. Without me, this community would fall into chaos. You're all ungrateful, every last one of you. I am the HOA and I will never apologize for protecting standards." But her tantrum only sealed her doom. The jury returned in less than 2 hours, guilty on all counts. When the judge delivered sentencing, his words thundered across the hushed room. "Karen Whitmore, you abused your neighbors, exploited their fear, and violated the law repeatedly to enrich yourself. You stand convicted of fraud, harassment, conspiracy, and destruction of private property. This court sentences you to 5 years in state prison, restitution of stolen funds, and a permanent injunction banning you from any position of authority in any community organization." The gavel slammed. Cheers erupted in the gallery. Neighbors hugged each other, some crying, some laughing through tears. For the first time in years, they were free. Karen shrieked as deputies cuffed her again, her voice cracking into nonsense about conspiracies and revenge. But no one listened. The queen of the HOA had fallen, and all she had left were her own broken lies. The months that followed were a rebirth. Without Karen's shadow looming, the HOA collapsed under state oversight. In its place, the community formed a volunteer council, transparent, accountable, with no power to fine or threaten. Families who had once tiptoed on eggshells now filled their yards with flowers, flags, and laughter. Kids rode bikes in the street without fear of being cited. And my meadow, scarred but still standing, blossomed again with wildflowers, the deer returning to graze without interruption. My cabin became a place of gathering, no longer a battlefield but a sanctuary. Neighbors brought food, helped mend fences, even rebuilt the dock together. We forged something Karen could never touch: trust. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the lake, I stood at the edge of the meadow, the air sweet with honeysuckle, the laughter of families rolling across the water. I thought of Karen's last scream in the courtroom, the sound of a tyrant stripped of her crown. She had tried to turn my land into her empire, but in the end, she destroyed herself. And I wonder if you had been in my shoes, watching your land exploited, your neighbors bullied, your dignity threatened. Would you have stayed silent? Or would you have stood up, even when the cost was high, knowing that courage might be the only path to freedom? Because in the end, bullies always fall. The only question is, will be brave enough to push back? So tell me, was I right to fight fire with fire, or do you think I should have handled it differently?